Welcome back to the National Security Hour. On with me today is Dr. Yen as we discuss the new methodology of warfare in Chapter 5 of Unrestricted Warfare and how this is being applied today against America, in America, by China. Before we left on the break, Dr. Yen was talking about our open border and how China effectively uses our own laws against us and the loopholes and other aspects against us here in the United States. Dr. Yen, you wanted to bring up an additional point on this. Back to you.
Thank you, sir. So, yeah, we have talked a lot about this border issue, but as you said, what we can do, I think, additionally, we could know that you need to understand CCP's tactics. I mean, this is also another way, the basic way you can defeat yourself. Because as we always talk about, unrestricted warfare is a combination of different types of the tools, weaponize everything in your life, plus the cognitive interference. So they weaponize everything around you, and they need to remove your awareness, suppress your awareness. How to suppress it? That means they need to brainwash you. They need to convince you using their narratives. So now let's talk about the open border. The open border issue is, you see Chinese military age people cross border increase like 10 times or more compared to previously from end of last year. However, why initially, especially in the first few months, very few people notice it. Also at that time, our source has already told us that we wore it through the broadcast, but at that time, very few people can understand the significance, because let's say back to even October, November last year, when Chinese people haven't poured through the border to the United States, we have seen the articles from BBC, initially BBC, Chinese Virgin, and BBC, and then later to New York Times and all the media, that they're talking about after the zero COVID policy in China, especially when there was a fight, the protest using white paper against the CCP's tyranny, people in pursuit of freedom. And we also know that during the COVID period, China's economy falls down. So both these kind of conditions create the thinking for Americans that, okay, China become worse and worse, and the people cannot bear it. So the thinking, your logic is, okay, now we see the Chinese people fly away China, bring their little money, and then go through the Latino America, spend a tough time, and even face the robbery and killing. And then they cross the border to the United States, and everyone go across the border will tell us, oh, we don't like CCP, oh, we don't like Xi Jinping, oh, we want to make money, have a American dream in the United States. Americans should, I mean, of course, they feel they should welcome these refugees, right? And yes, this is also the greatness of America. We have to always appreciate it. However, China knows this is your thinking, your logics. So the trap is also here. One hand, China can secretly control people's visa and passport. They have the 24-hour, 7 days surveillance cover everywhere in your life, double cover, multi-covered. So according to our sources, that many of people, even they have used Twitter for like comment a little bit thing negative about CCP or Xi Jinping, they could be immediately identified, most of them, by CCP's police, and then they were on the list. So these people, even if they want to leave China, they cannot get passport, they cannot get visa. China government threatened that even they go to the third country, like Turkey, Thailand, Ecuador, China can manage to bring them back overseas PlayStation everywhere. On the other hand, China will apply or recruit a lot of people and package them using the anti-CCP, this kind of experience, and train them. Some of them are professional. Some of them may are the people who say something make China angry before, but then China turns them to work for CCP. And then these people, plus some very innocent people that easily can be controlled by CCP, they are the majority of the group of Chinese people cross-border to the United States. So the trap is there. Americans are still naive and so kind, but CCP has used the Trojan horse to already embed the danger around the.
You're absolutely right. So let me reiterate some different points Dr. Yin has brought up because they're really critical for the audience to understand. First of all, if you don't know Dr. Yin, she and Live Media and her friends have a tremendous network, okay, that our intelligence community should be leveraging because it is a very well-resourced and very informative network. But what she's highlighting here is the purpose of Dr. Yin and I holding these collaborative sessions here. If you don't understand the enemy's tactics, techniques, and procedures, you can't compete against them. Okay, so they've used this deception of these refugees claiming dissatisfaction from CCP persecution and have now placed 40,000 plus of them, military-aged men in the United States here. They've used the good graces of our nation, our asylum laws, and our open borders to do just this. Now, this is really dangerous here because you've seen what happened with just 1,200 people on 7 October in Hamas. Now you got 40,000, but that's not it. You also have the aid of the Mexican cartels, the drug cartels, the network of those folks with them. You also seen what happened with the pro-Palestinian protest here in the United States. Out of the 150 million Americans on TikTok, okay, you've seen a massive upswell in pro-Palestinian demonstration stuff in the U.S., which are still going on. They're blocking airports, railroads, and other things. Now, these are pretty much passive type protests and such. Flip that around for a moment and think if they sought this to violence. Now, you think this is some sort of pipe dream. Remember back what happened with the BLM and Antifa and the so-called Summer of Love, okay? Now you add Antifa and BLM and these 40,000 military insurgents and stuff like that, and you have America's Armageddon. Now, in the book here, they highlight the aspects of this. And they said, it is not the case that American military circles have not noticed this advantage in eliminating the enemy against military and non-military actions. Yet they push resolution of this problem to politicians and the Central Intelligence Agency. Now, what they're saying here is, yes, the DoD understands some aspects of the cognitive war, but because they're so focused on kinetics, as I write in my book, The Cognitive War, they continue to just bypass that and forget it. No, and so even though the United States bears the brunt of being faced with the threat of this type of non-military war, the book says, and has been the injured party time after time, yet what is surprising is that such a large nation unexpectedly does not have a unified strategy and command structure to deal with the threat. Now, to Dr. Yin's point, not only is it important to understand the tactics, techniques, and procedures of China, but you have to understand the greater cognitive war. And that's why I wrote my book, The Cognitive War, Why We Are Losing and How We Can Win. Because these authors, a quarter century ago, said, it is surprising that such a large nation unexpectedly does not have a unified strategy or command structure to deal with the threat. And they're absolutely right. Dr. Yin is pointing out how they're going through and bleeding through every one of the single loopholes we have in our own laws and stuff like that. And what they're doing here is they're accelerating the collapse of the old system of military wars and using non-military wars here to push their agenda. And so let's go on to the next question here, Dr. Yin, because I think this is where your expertise really can help people understand this new methodology warfare is, can you give us your perspective on this focusing and your expertise as related to biological and other such weapons that China is undertaking here as part of this new methodology warfare?
Yes, sir. We have seen that even in this chapter 5, back to over 20 years ago, they have described that the new tools in the non-military warfare using the unrestricted warfare tactics include the biologic warfare, include the ecology warfare. So all these kind of things are not just certain concepts they are talking in the fiction. That are the things China has been working for decades, and they are still ongoing working on. So I really feel that recently we have seen the Congress hold this non-disclosed hearing with Dr. Fauci, right? And Dr. Fauci had, after 2 days voting hours, testimonially, he has an amazing capacity to selectively forget or remember certain things. And he has, of course, admitted that he should not, exclude the lab origin theory. I mean, when I see Dr. Fauci's experience, he has been the director of NIAID, the leading national organization working on the surveillance of dangerous biosecurity, and also in charge of infectious disease and working with the world from 1984. So basically, he was trained before that during the Cold War. He grew up during the Cold War, and as a first almost 10 years of his director of NIAID history is also the late stage of the Cold War. So, sir, for me, when I read his experience, it's very hard for me to believe that people like Dr. Fauci would be so naive to the communist bioweapon strategy against the Americans. And however, when we see what happened is because lack of education for over 30 years after the Cold War, especially for the young generation, like my generation and not that young, and the younger people, we don't have this kind of knowledge. So that's why most of people could easily think, oh, lab origin, bioweapon, this is conspiracies, never happened like the sci-fi fictions, right?
Yes.
But it probably can happen. And let's see what described in chapter 5. In chapter 5, although they talk like a lot, cite a lot of stories, but the main point actually is very simple. What they said, it includes several points. It's like, don't care about morality and break the rules. Non-military warfare plus terrorism style, and that could evolve into the new style of the unrestricted warfare, which is super powerful. And also do everything in the combination and let your enemy, the victims, have no awareness. So basically, when you combine all these several points, you can understand the key factors in the methodology. Let's see what they applied in the COVID-19. Before Americans and all the other people have any awareness, the virus came out of the lab. And before you have every awareness, of course, they have prepared it in the lab, and that is preparation. But from the moment they release it to the pandemic, even to recently, still, this is, Dr. Fauci's hearing actually is a kind of make it go to the new stage that now we know we definitely should seriously investigate what behind this COVID-19 pandemic, right? Yes. We know online in NIH and in this kind of bureaus or intelligence agencies, but the thing is, before that, people can still ignore it. That means your lack of awareness of biological warfare. And also, as we just talked about, like how Hamas did to Israel, this is indiscriminately killing everyone. And it's very bad. And let's see the propaganda. Is that real time? Yes. We say people are sick, people are dying, people need help. And also we see it's continuously wide coverage, right? It intimidates people. So there are a lot of things we can talk about, and maybe we should continue it in the next section.
No, so very good, Dr. Yin. So let me highlight a couple of things you've said again, because you're very, very on spot here. So Dr. Fauci grew up in the Cold War. He shouldn't be naive. For our listeners who are younger generations, this is why it's so critical to understand and look at history, because none of what's happening now is new. It's all been done before. It's just repackaged in a more nefarious manner by China in terms of its overall efforts and stuff. They're using non-military methods, which could be seen very peaceful and complacent until they don't become, and then they become terrifying terrorist actions, which then shock the conscience and shock the people. COVID-19, the China flu, is a perfect example. Several million people were slaughtered across the world, and over 1 million in the United States. And yet the world has not yet held China to account for this. This has just emboldened them significantly further.